Internet! Welcome back to our storytelling adventures. Today I am retelling for your personal enjoyment the story of the princess and the pea. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there lived a king, a queen, and a prince. They lived in a gigantic castle that loomed over a beautiful valley. All the music was beautiful, all the art was tasteful, and all the jokes were hilarious. But the king and the queen and the prince were all perfectly miserable. Why? Because the queen was a status-obsessed nutjob. The king couldn't handle the pressure of his job and had long since turned into a nervous wreck, and the prince felt that no one understood him. Then, one day, the prince had an idea.
I know! If I get married, all my problems will be solved!
Everyone agreed that this was an excellent idea. We shall have a contest, and all the princesses of the world will come together to compete for the honor of being my son's bride. Isn't that a wonderful idea, Your Majesty? I wasn't always a man.
You're absolutely right. We must send the messengers out at once.
I used to be a frog. The messengers left immediately, and the king and queen waited patiently for a few years. Because this was way before cars or planes, and sometimes it took a few years for someone to get your message, and then to reply. Some of the messengers drowned at sea. Some of them froze to death in the terrible north. 2 of them were eaten by bears. One of the messengers was eaten by his own horse, and several of them just gave up, settled down wherever they were, and lived happily ever after. In the end, only one princess was able to make it to the contest.
Your Majesty, I can't tell you how excited I am to be here. It's been my dream to marry your son ever since I first heard about him 4 months ago.
Yay! Not so fast, princess. Before you can marry my son, you have to pass a test. How do we know you're a real princess? What sort of question is that? Aha! A real princess would have been able to answer that question.
Imposter!
After the imposter princess fled the castle and returned to her own, far richer kingdom, the prince almost gave up on ever finding his perfect bride.
Oh, Father, I'll never find the girl for me.
Well, maybe you're just not looking in the right places. Check out the legs on that one.
Then, on a dark and stormy night, there came a knock at the door.
Who could that be?
It's Kermit. I knew he'd come back for me.
But it wasn't Kermit. It was a princess. Or at least, she claimed she was a princess. But she was so wet and bedraggled, there was no way of knowing whether or not she was telling the truth.
Thank you for letting me spend the night in your castle. Are you sure you're a princess? You don't look like a princess.
I'm pretty sure. But the queen wasn't so easily convinced. So she snuck into the princess's bedroom and put a dried pea this big underneath the mattress. Then, calling the servants, they piled 20 more mattresses on top of the bed and 20 more blankets on top of the mattress.
Now we'll know for sure.
I'm gonna need a ladder. The next morning, the queen and the prince were waiting for the princess at the breakfast table.
So, how'd you sleep?
I'm not gonna lie to you. Last night was awful. I didn't get a wink of sleep.
Now we know you're a real princess. Only a real princess would have felt the pea under all those mattresses.
What pea? I'm scared of heights. I was terrified that I would roll over in my sleep and fall to my death.
Princess, 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 princess.
You guys aren't good listeners, are you? Later that morning.
Dad! Dad! You'll never believe what's happened! Dad? I can't take it anymore. Kermit and I are running away together. Don't look for me. Goodbye. Princess! When Dad gets home, I'll tell him all about
The prince and the princess were married later that afternoon, even though the princess was trying to explain that she was already married. Her husband, who had been waiting for her just a few miles down the road, soon heard of the marriage and declared war on the prince and the queen. They surrendered within a week. The prince and the queen vanished into exile, and what became of them after that is a mystery. The princess and her husband went back home and enjoyed their now much bigger kingdom. As for the king, Kermit helped him find a witch who was willing to turn him back into a frog, and the two of them lived happily ever after. So there you have it, The Princess and the Pea, told as Hans Christian Andersen always intended. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions or requests or comments, please post in the comments. And yeah, the end.